Welcome to the Eternal ROI Podcast, where we share the real stories of workplace transformation. And now, here are your hosts, Will Stewart and Chris Patton.
Welcome to the Eternal ROI Podcast. I'm Will Stewart, joined as always by Chris Patton, CEO of His Way at Work. Hey, Chris.
Will, how are you doing today?
Doing good. We're mixing things up a little bit.
A little bit of a shift?
Yeah. For the podcast people, it might sound pretty much the same, but
right.
You just kind of check us out on video if you're doing podcasts only.
For the video, this is comfortable.
Yeah,
I could kind of get used to this.
New set. We're on couches and chairs and just
going to be fireplace right over there.
Yeah, and so we have an interesting topic today. What are we talking about?
Well, what we're talking about is, as a business owner, there are probably things that your employees are saying about you that may not be the best things for them to say, and you may or may not be aware of them. So we're trying to kind of address the idea that employees see a side of us that maybe we don't see. Yeah. And so as business owners, business leaders, we've got blind spots sometimes. And I think these 5 things that your employees may be saying about you could be helpful to maybe uncover some of those blind spots and give you some ways to go about correcting your course.
Yeah. And, a lot of times when you're talking to an employee, sometimes they'll say exactly what you want to hear,
Yeah.
They'll do everything they need to do to keep their job safe, even though their job may not be on the line. It's
That's
just,
right.
They're just trying to please you. They're trying to make sure everything's okay. So I guess listening for these phrases are important.
Well, it's yes, listening for these, but more than likely what we've got on this list, you won't hear them say it. What you've got to do, if you're listening, is as we go through each of these, is ask yourself, is it possible they're saying this about me? Because as I analyze my actions, maybe, golly, they could be saying that. And if that's the case, how do you go about correcting that? How do you do something differently so that over time they stop saying it? I don't know that you're ever going to hear somebody say it or that you're going to catch them saying it. It's really more about, here's some things that you really need to think about. What does it look like from an employee perspective when you start analyzing your own actions? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll make more sense when we get through the list.
Absolutely. So let's just get to the first one.
All right.
The first one is, all they care about is blank.
So if your employees are thinking all he or she cares about as the business owner is fill in the blank. Yeah. It's really, what are you saying all the time? What are you talking about? If you're always talking about net profit, if you're talking about sales numbers, if you're talking about industry predictions, if you're always talking about the business and the performance of the business, then they may say all he really cares about is business.
Yeah.
Well, what that means is he doesn't care about me, or he doesn't care about people, or he doesn't care about maybe employee struggles, or what, it's the other that he doesn't care about is the problem. Yeah. And so here's the thing. If you think about your own behaviors and your own actions and you realize all I'm ever talking about is this, and it'll be mid-sentence, you're talking about it and you'll realize, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I'm thinking about all the time. Well, then there's an issue.
Yeah.
Now, unless that fill in the blank is all he cares about is loving on people. They're not complaining about that one, I promise you. So let's assume for argument's sake that all he cares about is business, or all he cares about is the bottom line. That's coming out because that's what you continue to talk about. That's what you continue to share every time you get a chance to speak to the employees as a group or individually or in a meeting. And what you've got to be able to do is back up on that. Yeah. Mix it up, not just for the sake of variety, but to, I guess first check yourself. Is that all you care about?
Yeah, because it might be.
And if that's the case, that's a different set of problems. But let's assume, no, that's not all I care about. But I felt like that's all I could really talk about in the workplace. I can't go into the soft stuff or they'll think I'm weak and then they're going to take advantage of me.
Right, yeah.
And that's hogwash.
Yeah.
So my advice here is start talking about things that you should care about, that you probably already do care about, and be willing to let them know those are important to you. Yeah. Talk about family. Yeah. Talk about your family. And then ask them about theirs, right? We'll get to some others here in a minute that'll be further down that path, but don't let them think that's all you care about. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, that's so good. That's such great advice. And it's easy to be in business mode when you're at work, you know, just like I'm thinking about numbers. And as the business owner, there's so many things that you know about that maybe the employee doesn't know about. You're thinking about, the next quarter, you're thinking about that job that just got,
the call from the bank.
Right. Yeah. All these different things. Yeah. You're like, how am I going to make payroll?
And granted, Will, in the last couple of years with COVID, a lot of business owners have gone from thinking about other things to now just focused on survival.
Sure.
Right? I remember back in 2008, 2009, and 2010 in the car business, I was just worried about surviving to 2012, right? So I probably let that come out in my speech more often than what I really wanted coming out, which is caring about the employees. But so I'm not really talking about limited time periods. It's an overall picture. Is this what you're putting out there that's all you care about?
Yeah.
That's when it's a problem.
Yeah, I love that. Second one is they don't know what I go through.
Wow. So here's the thing. So many business owners that I talk to and business leaders say, well, I started out, I worked for somebody else, I was not cared for well, or they didn't treat me well or whatever, and I also was really good at what I did, so I went out and started my own business. Yeah. And so that individual can say, I used to be that entry-level employee. And most all of us that worked in the business world started at entry level somehow, right? We didn't just walk into an ownership position, most likely. Yeah. The problem is it's been long enough that we actually don't understand what they're going through.
It's true.
And it's a hard one because we don't understand them. Yeah. We are no longer, as the business owner, now this is not just financial, though that's probably a big part of it. It's also the stresses of being an employee. I went from running the family business to working for someone else, and there's a different dynamic there, right? Yeah. Working for someone, your job being dependent upon their pleasure is a different mindset. And if you're the owner, you're not thinking that way. You don't understand what they're going through. Yeah. When times get tough, business owner thinks, how do I make sure we make it through? Employee thinks, is he going to cut my job next?
Right.
Totally different dynamic. Yeah. What are the stresses there? What does that employee think walking back into the home where their income is critical to the operation of the home, husband or wife, breadwinner or support? So we don't understand what they're going through. And the antidote here is start having conversations with employees that are not at the top level, at the highest level. Yeah. And just have a conversation. Say, well, man, what's going on in your world? How are things going? Carve time out to do management while walking around. We'll do caring by walking around. Walk around, just ask some questions. Have conversations with those who are in a different situation than you are, whether it's position, economic, or otherwise. Get a feel for what they are going through. Yeah. You can't ever tell them, I know exactly what you're feeling going through, right? But you can give them a sense that you care about it, and you at least have some interaction on it, and others are watching that as well. And it diffuses that comment that he just doesn't know what I'm going through.
Yeah. And if you don't take the time to listen, then you're not going to know what they're going through.
You're not.
Which leads us to that third point, which is they're too busy to talk to me.
Yeah, he's too busy. I saw a video the other day. I don't know if it was my kids send me TikToks on occasion or what it was, but it was a lady walking through the hospital. She was wearing scrubs. She's walking through the halls of the hospital, taking corners as quickly as you can, just walking as focused, and nobody would stop her or slow her down. Yeah. Because she was moving so fast, and the point of the video was, if you do this, people won't interrupt your day.
That's good.
As if that's the goal. Well,
right.
This is what they're saying is he's too busy to talk to me because we think if I've got pressure on me, if I've got too many things to do, I need to walk quickly. I need to walk with purpose. I need to move around, and I need to run meetings, on a tight schedule and keep things moving because I'm important. I've got important things to do. Yeah. Even if we're not intentionally thinking arrogantly, right. It comes across to them that we just don't have time to talk to them. Yeah. And the antidote is, guess what? Make some time to talk to them. Exactly. I mean, it's not rocket science. So it goes back to the one earlier where you just carve out some time, and it might look like this. So for me, walking through, it was 3 dealerships. It may take me from my office at the end of one end of the campus to the conference room at the other end. It might take me 6 or 7 minutes to walk there for a meeting. So here's what you need to do. The meeting's at 10 o'clock in the morning. Leave your office at 9:30. Very simple. Just set a different leave my office time, and now you've got 15, 18 minutes to chat as you go.
Yeah.
Now, the first time or two, you might end up in a 30-minute conversation. You're late to the meeting. Don't be tempted to write the whole thing off.
Right.
Just get better at the quicker conversations, but don't let the quickness of it make it seem like you don't really care. You just schedule them into your busy day.
Yeah.
If that ever comes across, then you might as well stop wasting your time.
And there's different types of conversations too. I mean, there is the sit down, get to know you, what's going on. But then also, you talk about, they don't know what I'm going through. If you're an employee, sometimes having a boss or the CEO or whoever it is just say, "How are you?" To remember a past conversation.
Yes.
How was your dog? You told me your dog had fleas.
Yeah.
Did everything go there? That's all. That may be all it takes
big deal.
for them to go like, "Oh man, I matter." And I'm important, and people just want to see that they're valued.
Yes, and let's go back to make sure I hit this point. You've got to actually care.
Right.
All right. So none of this advice is any good for you if you don't actually care about your people.
True.
Right.
So true.
The people I'm talking to right now are those that care but aren't good at showing it.
Yeah.
They care, but they're busy, and they've never really been trained on how to let people know they care.
Yeah.
Okay. But we're starting with the assumption there is care here, right? And then the conversations are genuine. Yeah. They may be short, but as you said, but they're genuine.
Yeah. And if you find those rhythms around the things that you're doing naturally in your business,
yes,
and find those gaps. I mean, for me, a lot of times I go office to office in the very beginning of the day, unless I have like a meeting I got to go straight into. It's just like, "Hey, how are you? How was your evening?"
Yes.
Just checking in. And it doesn't take very long to do that and just make sure everybody's doing well and there aren't any issues.
So here's the thought. We just talked about physically walking from office to office. What if you're all remote?
That's a good one.
Right? So in this world today, there are a lot of businesses who are 100% remote.
Sure.
And the challenge then is, how do I make it happen virtually when I'm not in the office? So just an example, I took this practice from Polydeck, one of his way at work companies, and they basically have a connection meeting. Each leader in the company has a connection meeting, they call it, with every direct report on their team. Mm-hmm. And this is not a one-on-one. A connection meeting. So let's say that I'm your supervisor and you're my direct report, and I'm going to have a connection meeting with you. It may be once a month. It may be twice a month. It's going to be 30, 40 minutes, but it's your agenda. What do you want to talk about?
That's good.
Well, the first thought is, what do you mean, boss? What do you want me to talk about?
Yeah, what do you want me to talk about?
What do you want me to want to talk about? Right? And so the way I was taught it, and I love this idea because today we're all remote.
Yeah.
But the idea here is you set the time aside. You're not too busy if it's part of your schedule. And you say, I'm going to set this time and we're going to talk. And you just share with me what's on your mind. What's going on. For some, it may be, wow, I've taken this cooking class lately or this pottery class. Yeah. Or for others, it might be, well, my job is on my mind right now because I'm really struggling with this. Can we talk about this? Yes, we can talk about your job, but I'm encouraging outside of that talk.
I love that.
Then the next call, like you say, so how did this end up last time? How did that work for you?
Yeah.
And it's not like you should not just be making it, you ask me a question and a problem and I give you the advice and the fix.
Right.
I may have no earthly idea how to advise in that area, but I can be a coach in that I encourage and then I listen. And just in that time, you're saying they're important.
Just some intentionality.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's great. The fourth one is they would be mad if I asked for help.
Yeah. Yeah. So now this can be for multiple reasons, right? So if I'm an employee and you're the boss and I say that, you might be mad if I ask for help with something because you're just too busy. Yeah. And if I interrupt you, you're mad. Well, then the problem there is you're acting too busy and you're not willing to take some time for someone on your team to ask you a question, right? So that's one problem. Another problem may be that I should know this, or I think you think I should know this, even though I'm fairly new. Maybe I'm new to the company, and maybe I came in and you had expectations that I'd be able to hit the ground running and know all of what I need to know. If the employee does not feel safe enough to say, I need help with this, guess what they're not going to do? They're not going to ask for help.
That's right.
And if they don't ask for help, what's the likelihood what they end up with is what you want them to end up with, right? There's going to be a problem, most likely.
Yeah.
So the antidote here is be approachable. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means I'm not running around the dealership or the business quickly and making myself look busy. It means that when somebody says, hey, boss, I pause and say, yeah, what can I do for you? Instead of, what? What?
Right.
Right? So approachable is you don't respond with abruptness or curtness when asked a question or interrupted.
Or if you're late for a meeting and someone asks you a question, be what we call in our company a little J jerk. It's being
say that
a
again?
little J jerk. So it's where you're being direct, and you might hurt a feeling, but you're not. You're doing it in a kind way where you say like, "Hey, now it's not a good time, but I really care to help you.
Yes.
Let me after this
Can
meeting's
we do it
over.
later?
Can we talk? I got 5 minutes."
Yes. Yeah. It is. It's just important to acknowledge and be approachable to where even if you are running late, you're letting them know, hey, not a good time, but not a problem that you're asking. Can we schedule some time this afternoon? I'm free at 2:00 or whatever, or I'll have my assistant reach back out and let's try to put something. And if they say, no, this can be next 4 or 5 days, well, then that's fine.
Right. Yeah.
But ask.
But at least they're heard.
Yeah.
That's great. Last one is they don't care about me.
Okay, so we started off with all he cares about is blank. And that infers, if that's the case, that they don't care about me personally. Yeah. But as a CEO, as a boss, as an owner, you could be innocent of the first phrase, which all he cares about is blank. You could approach things in a way that says, I care about a lot of different things, and I'm interested in people in general. But specifically, I don't care about you, not just you individually, just you, Will, and I care about everybody else. But I don't care about the individuals. I am looking at this as a big picture, and you're just, in general, a number.
Yeah.
This is hard to do. This is hard to combat when you grow past a certain point, right? So when I first started in the car business, I was in a dealership where I had 25 or 30 people answering to me. I can know all their names. I can know spouses' names. I can know a lot more than 5 years later, there's 120 people, right? Well, then you're past my mental capacity easily.
Yeah.
And I'll even not know names of people that started a week ago if you don't have a process in place to make that happen. So, the individual person, every single individual person needs to feel like they matter. Decisions need to be made, even if you're not present when they're made. Decisions need to be made, and care needs to be taken so that each individual feels cared for.
Yeah.
I've had bosses before that I could say that individual cares about me, even though I'm not having one-on-one conversations with them.
Yeah, right.
They care about me because they put this in place to make sure that in general, nobody's working on Sundays.
Yeah.
Right? That's a business decision that says I care about my people because I'm not going to work the seventh day to squeeze that extra dollar out, right? It's things like that. So, again, we start with you have to actually care to combat this. But then it starts showing it in small ways. Even if I haven't yet had a conversation with the boss, but I see him or her when they're walking to meetings, they stop and chat. Mm-hmm. Then I feel, okay, well, they probably care about me too. And maybe I'll stop them next go around.
Yeah. It all comes down to having time, setting aside time for people, and then creating processes.
Yes.
To where, you have to be thoughtful. You have to be intentional about how you love people. It's not going to happen by accident. It's not just going to naturally occur, even though we might have the best of intentions.
Yeah.
Especially in a business environment, especially for people who might be driven and also pressured with everything that's going on in the world. You got to be intentional, and you have to be have processes and rules in place for your own life so that you can make sure that no one ever says these 5 things about you.
Yeah. And, just one extra point there. It's tempting if you're over a big company or you've got too many people, whether it's 75, you can't remember them all, or 150 or 500 or 1,000, whatever. Don't think that, well, I can't care for one if I can't do the same for everybody.
Yeah.
I can't spend 5-10 minutes with you, Will, because I've got 120 people. And if I did that for everybody, I'd never have time to work. So therefore, I can't do it with you.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to go deep with 1 or 2 or 5, knowing that you'll never reach the 120.
Yeah.
But you're showing to those that are outside of that 5 initially that, hey, I'm willing, regardless, and don't do it just with your high performers, right?
Yeah,
Don't do it just with those that are your favorites, but do it kind of as a blanket policy. I'm going to walk around and have conversations, and I'm not going to hit everybody every time. But in doing that, you're showing, no, I don't just care about business. Yes, I care about you. And when the time comes where I need to give you the time, I'll do it. Yeah. I'll go as deep as I need to.
I love that. Yeah. And there's things you can do, no matter how big you are, to love even the entry-level employees.
Yes.
There's a CEO I sat down with, and he was talking about how he likes to care for his employees. And they have hundreds of employees across 20 plus states. They are making incredible amounts of money. So lots of things going on, lots of things in his life. And he showed me, he said, let me show you my calendar. And he has an event that happens 2 or 3 times a week where he gets 6 employees at random. It doesn't matter, from people that he doesn't know personally. They all get on a Zoom call, and he said the rule is you can't talk about work, just talk about your life. So it's similar to what you said.
Yeah.
And he spends 30 minutes with them, and all 6 of them together, and they have a conversation. They chat.
That's exactly what
and that works for him. Something else is going to work. Something else is going to work for somebody else. But just do something.
But that addresses the virtual issue as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, this was fun to discuss. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on this.
Well, I've probably had each of those 5 things said about me at one point, and just try to learn from those, but also, like you, learn from others that have done much better ahead of me. So,
All right, so that's 5 things employees might be saying about you, and we hope that no one ever says that about anybody who's listening, but if they do, there's steps in place where they can fix it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Eternal ROI. If you like what you heard, we would love for you to take a moment and leave us a review and share an episode with somebody you know. If you are inspired to begin bringing the power of God's love into your workplace, take a moment and check out our free assessment at hwaw.com. It'll only take you a few moments. It'll give you a snapshot of what your company looks like and maybe some ways to move forward. Just click on the link in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.